I'm here today with Frank Lewis, experienced chairman, board director, and advisor to numerous AIM-listed companies in sectors including energy and technology. Welcome today, Frank.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. It's a pleasure. So you've many years of experience across many different businesses and sectors. Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
Okay. I'm originally from South Africa, where I qualified as a chartered accountant there, although I'm also a chartered accountant here. And going up the corporate ladder, eventually, as a finance director, I eventually decided to go on my own, and I managed, fortunately, to get involved in a couple of interesting businesses. Amongst them, I helped to develop and co-found at that time, within a period from 0 to 3 years, the largest retail computer chain in Africa, which we put on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. I also had interest in a domestic lighting business, a jewelry group, and a ladies' fashion business. And once we saw what was happening in the computer industry business, the retail side, where you basically had to sort of double your turnover to stand still because of the economies of scale, we decided to sell it. And then I made a decision with my family to leave South Africa and bring them over to the UK. And over here, after basically having to start afresh, my first role here was with a residential property group which I listed, and then after that I found an opportunity with an interactive TV company which I listed on the AIM market, and thereafter a bit of issues there which we could come back to. I was asked to go on boards of various AIM listed companies and private companies because of the way I've conducted myself and my experience. And over the next couple of years, up 15 years or so, I've been associated with about 8-9 AIM companies, which I've acted as a chairman or a non-exec director, and also chaired audit committees in the UK. I was also involved in companies in China who were listed on AIM, companies in Eastern Europe and in Africa.
Goodness me, that's a pretty broad cross-section of experience. So
yes, and
going on to you in more detail, your website describes you as something of a problem solver. Can you give us some insight into that? What sort of issues have you resolved in the past with the companies you've worked with?
Yes, I think fundamentally the role of one of the roles of the chairman and non-exec director is to ensure that companies are well run and not to shirk one's responsibilities if issues arise within the business which you are involved in as a chairman or non-exec or an executive director. And I've never ever shirked my responsibilities to try and sort out issues for the benefit of the stakeholders. And the type of issues what I've had to deal with is fundamentally certain companies where the board or the CEO I found was not capable of taking the business further. And I had to make changes. I had to deal with, I call that human issues. I had to deal with issues of looking at alleged frauds and cases. I've had to look at issues of non-compliance with rules and regulations. And also I've had to get involved in certain issues, especially overseas, when you had to deal with the cultural issues, which was a mixture of non-compliance with the rules, or also people thinking they could run the business like they did in the past. And and fundamentally, the major ones I've had to deal with is I listed an interactive TV company, which I had an interest in, and after listing, unfortunately, I found that there were certain issues I had to deal with, which should have come to light before. And obviously I had to deal with it. It also affected me because I had a financial interest, but I dealt with it as I should have dealt with it, and for that reason also people heard how I conducted myself, and I was therefore asked to get involved, as I say, in other companies. I was also, amongst other things, been asked to become a member of the AIM Advisory Council. I was the only business ever to be elected, which I sat there for 3 years. Another major issue which of major interest is that when I was a chairman of a company in China, It was a mobile phone assembly company. I got a call one day from one of my non-execs. They said, we've got a major problem. The problem was that the CEO had run away, and there was 500 people in the factory, and there was riots, and I had one or two very good non-executive directors there and we managed to close it down. The police came, etc. And fortunately, in a way, nobody's ever had to deal with this, I believe, from living based in London. But the company had the holding company was in London, was UK based, which was fortunate in a way. And once it was closed down and things settled down, I took a view that because we also settled the liabilities, that there was no liabilities in the company. We also obviously had to have the company suspended, and that was eventually delisted. I took a view that we could do a voluntary winding up of the company from the UK, which we did. And I don't know if anybody else had to do it. And we did it successfully, and the company was wound up, and we all walked away with honor. And that was, unfortunately or fortunately, I had to do that, and it worked out okay under the circumstances.
Okay, so yeah, that's a pretty impressive list of achievements there, Frank.
Yeah.
So bring it forward today now. Which companies are you working with at present?
At the moment, I'm a non-exec director of a large company in the real estate industry that develops shopping malls in Ukraine, in the Kiev area. It's got over 250 million worth of gross assets, and excellent management team, I must say. And we had excellent results up to the end of December. However, as everybody else in the real estate industry at the moment was going on with the virus and the issues and closing down shops, we all having the same, a lot of issues are the same. Yeah. However, we will come through it as we have a very good management and we have the resources, and we'll come through the aftermath at the end of the day. I'm also involved as a consultant with another company that has developed certain ways of developing homes in a more automated way, and also has developed certain software and hardware to run the homes after development to make it more tech related, if I can use that term, and busy working with that at the moment.
Excellent.
I'm also looking at one or two other companies just waiting for this virus to go to this lockdown and set to go away and see what's going to happen.
Okay, Frank. So on the subject of the COVID virus, of course, we're now starting hopefully to emerge from the other side of this dreadful global event. So you've given us some insight into how it's affected the way you're working. What advice would you give to companies and directors trying to navigate their way through the situation at the moment?
Very interesting question, and obviously it affects every board of directors and directors personally. And in my opinion, to survive the crisis, boards of directors need to exercise collaborative and proactive leadership in today's market, which includes the non-exec directors, and also what I call to harness positive tension to ensure that the companies don't become what's the word I'm thinking of? That the companies do not become dysfunctional in this particular crisis, which is very important. And the first thing that one has to look at as a board is to ensure there's continuity. And taking that into account, boards need to look at the employees, at the assets and resources to ensure that there can be continuity going forward in the business, and that's very important. And boards then also, as I say, have to come together to review the issues very carefully in these times. The issue also, boards need to look forward and understand and take a view as to how long they think this can take, this lockdown and the issues will take place, and also to understand and how to deal with the aftermath of this particular crisis going forward. And in these times, in my opinion, and I did also suggest always that boards need to run the business for cash, as opposed to try to run the business for profit. So to try to maximize the cash resources, because as they say, cash is king. And that's what we try to do. And so what further to that. Boards need to concern themselves about two different issues fundamentally in these times. The first is the financial resources of the company, and to look at what cash available that was put aside for investment, for working capital, and for other issues to grow the business, and see how much of that could be made available, taking account the situation and how long they believe the crisis is going to last, to keep the company going on a going concern and keep it going to ensure that the company can come out on the other side. It has to be regularly reviewed to ensure that there's sufficient capital available for that. Otherwise, they have to make other alternatives, maybe reduce overheads even further. Okay. The other issue is that boards need to look at how to deal with stakeholders in these times, and the stakeholders being the employees and also various shareholders. And also, fundamentally, it's very important. It's getting more important to look after the interests of employees and to see how they conduct themselves and how they can continue. With regard to stakeholders, the issue is, they all got their own views, but the board's got to take a view as to if the public company, whether continue paying dividends or not paying dividends under the circumstances, and to sort that out for the best interest of all the stakeholders. And here the board needs to come together, including the non-exec directors who can play a role here, to look at it in a more challenging and a more constructive way. The board being more emotional, and the executive board, in order to assist in coming to the right decisions. Okay. The other issue, the other issue is very important, is that companies need to consider how they are trading and whether they are trading under insolvent conditions. And also directors have to take a view, because they could be held personally liable for the debts of the company if the company is trading under insolvent conditions. Therefore, also at the moment, there's a law being passed in Parliament in terms of passing a bill for a moratorium to allow companies to trade for another few months. The law should come law in the next few weeks, for the next few months, to see if they can come out the insolvency, trading under insolvency, and also protect directors from being held liable for wrongful trading. So that's being passed, and it's be interesting to see how that will be able to help. The last issue with all this is that where boards and also non-executives can play a role is to deal with executive management. It's become very emotional and very stressful for boards dealing on a day-to-day basis with all these issues that have arisen. And non-executive directors can assist in reviewing the executive directors, how they're conducting themselves, whether they feel how to deal with the stress, and give advice, or maybe make changes when necessary to assist them and also to assist the company.
Okay. Well, Frank, we're running short on time. Before we go, could you provide three golden rules that you abide by as you discharge your responsibilities, both as chairman, non-exec, and executive director?
Well, okay. I mean, fundamentally, I think first thing is that directors need to have the skill set of an individual to contribute, but the mindset of a team player. The second issue, in my opinion, is when I look at it, one needs to be a helper, not a meddler. A lot of executives come on board as non-execs. I think they still can run the business, but it's not their function. Sure. Thirdly, they need to be able to challenge in a constructive and positive way to get the respect of the management people around the table, to show that you're not merely just challenging, but you add value in a constructive way and giving suggestions which could assist as well. And just two other issues, if I may mention them quickly. As a chairman of the company, what I look at is when you're running a business, you need to ensure that your board is being appointed for where you want to be, and not where you are at the moment. And that's a critical role of an experienced chairman, to ensure that happens, to take the business forward. And the last thing I always try to do is not to overpromise and underdeliver.
Sure. Wise words indeed. Frank Lewis, it's been great talking to you. Many thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.